This is Matt Coyne, host of The Cheap Seats. Thank you for listening to the following broadcast here on Public House Media.
This is Julianne Condia, host of Rewritten here on Public House Media. Thank you so much for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Rewritten, where we will talk about you having limitless potential and can rewrite your story at any time. No matter your background, your past, or current situation, you can have the type of life you crave. A new show comes out every single Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Rewritten. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy and you probably are too. This is Elisabeth, and I'm here today with Emily, and we're here to talk nerdy to you with our semi-reoccurring series on the Elder Scrolls. This Saturday, Elder Scrolls fans celebrate the 7th anniversary of the release of the 5th installment in the series, known as Skyrim. And with remasters and re-releases, it's become pretty firmly implanted in different areas of pop culture. But there's more to this game than just sweet rolls and kicking cheese and arrows to the knees. So stay tuned as we dive deep into the lore surrounding Skyrim. Now, obviously, there are spoilers ahead, but seeing as this is a 7-year-old game now that is available on a total of 6 different platforms at the moment, I'm not sure what you're waiting for if you haven't given it a play already. Also, just like the Oblivion episode, the information in this podcast is gleaned from in-game books and the unofficial Elder Scrolls page, or UESP. So if you're looking for more information, the UESP is a great starting point.
So in our Oblivion episode, we talked a lot about the Daedric princes, if you remember. And if you don't remember, we'll kind of refresh a little bit about some of that and their influence over the events in that game. So Daedric princes don't have a lot to do with the game Skyrim. In this game, it's the Aedra who have more of an indirect influence, or rather one Aedric deity in particular, Akatosh.
We touched a little tiny bit on who the Aedra were in Oblivion, but just in case anybody hasn't listened to that episode, the Aedra are the original divine beings who created the world of Nirn, as opposed to the Daedric princes who were not involved in the creation of Nirn at all. Now, there are lots of different Aedric deities, but the main ones who are commonly worshipped in the Cyrodiilic pantheon are referred to initially as the 8 divines, and then when Talos later joins them, they become the 9 divines. Now, I'm not going to spend time debating whether or not Talos is a real divine or not, and who he really is, because that's something that could really be endlessly debated with all of the in-game information and the lore. And if anyone is interested, there is a subreddit out there called TES Lore that has lots of good information on that and lots of other really kind of almost nitpicky lore-related things. But the point is that the Aedra are more or less gods that are revered in some form throughout Tamriel. They might have different names, depending on the different areas of Tamriel that you're in, but they're all the same basic deities. And the 9 are commonly known as Akatosh, Arche, Dibella, Julianos, Kinnereth, Mara, Stendar, Talos, and Zenithar. And they each have their own kind of sphere of influence that they oversee. And Akatosh, his sphere of influence is time. And one of the big things regarding him is he also specifically created dragons. And it's one dragon in particular, Alduin, who is the main antagonist in the main questline of Skyrim.
Awesome. And I've played a little bit of Skyrim. I've gotten maybe 2 or 3 different games started and gotten to the part where I fight the first dragon. And then I, for some reason, just kind of get distracted at that point. So you're going to have to tell me, who is Alduin?
Alduin is actually considered Akatosh's firstborn, and he serves a very important purpose overall in the world. He is known as the World Eater. So at the end of time, at the end of the world, his job is to devour the world of Nirn so that the next world can come into existence. kind of like a cycle of death and rebirth kind of thing. And not exactly a glamorous job, but someone's got to do it. So that was his job. However, he long kind of abandoned his post. He ended up developing and creating the culture around the dragons, kind of developing their own culture and, taking them from just being wild beasts into actual like intelligent, sentient beings. And he actually facilitated the creation of the dragon cult that actually worshiped them as gods. And, over time, he kind of just started slaughtering people indiscriminately. So, of course, the Nords didn't really like that. So they rebelled. And there were 3 Nords in particular who created a specific shout to help defeat him.
Okay, so I do know what shouts are. Since I've gotten through to the defeating of my first dragon, I actually learned my first shout and got to do it. So shouts are like the magic of dragons, and only certain people can use them, and dragons specifically can use them. It's dragons that are specially tuned to magic, and even their words can cause streams of fire or frost or other deathly phenomena to happen. Humans, Nords, normally can learn to do this, but it takes a long time of studying. And there's also a subset of humans who can do this instantly without any studying, and those are known as Dragonborn, which apparently, if you are playing the game of Skyrim, you are a Dragonborn. Is that correct?
Yep. I'm going to touch on that just a little bit later.
Okay.
But yeah, basically shouts are, I know in one of the loading screens it says that a battle between dragons is basically like a deadly verbal debate. Because like all of their words are basically like concentrated magic, and they're just like basically throwing that at each other.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I like it.
We went to a political debate today and like, instead of like actually talking, they were just like screaming fire and frost and at each other.
Wow, that would be pretty intense. All right. So then how did a shout defeat Alduin then? Because that's what the 3 particular Nords that rebelled used shouts to defeat him. So how did that work?
Well, it kind of did and it didn't at the same time. The shout itself that they used is called Dragon Rend. And what it does is in game it's referred to as it gives the dragon a taste of mortality, because dragons are immortal. And what it practically does is that it grounds and stuns a dragon. So basically it makes them a much easier target, because, when they're flying around, it's a lot harder to just, hit them with an arrow or hit them with magic. But when they're on the ground and they're stunned, it's much easier to just, run up and hit them, So, right. However, like they used it on him and they did ground him, but it became pretty apparent that it wasn't working. He actually did end up killing one of the 3. And so at that time, they realized it wasn't enough, so they used an Elder Scroll in order to send him forward in time.
Oh, so they just made it someone else's problem in the future.
Pretty much, yes.
Gotcha. So it worked for them.
Yeah, we'll leave it to somebody else. Maybe in the future, like, they can figure out this problem.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, at least then they can prepare the future people and say, hey, there's a dragon. We sent him there. Make sure you're ready by the time he gets there.
I don't think that worked out too well, but
yeah. So it is called the Elder Scrolls, though. So then what is an Elder Scroll? Maybe we kind of discussed this in our first episode, but I forgot now. So
well, the answer of what an Elder Scroll isn't exactly easy. They are scrolls of an unknown origin and an unknown number. And they detail events past, present, and future. They're supposed to be fragments of creation that technically exist outside of time. So they simultaneously exist and don't exist.
I like that. It's like a weird quantum phase, like sciencey thing. I like it.
Yeah. And because of this, like they have all kinds of special properties. They're most often used to like divine prophecies. There's this special subset of monks called moth priests, and they actually study and prepare themselves in order to read Elder Scrolls. And they have to be very careful, because once you start reading Elder Scrolls, you actually start going blind. Yeah, and so like your blindness will last for longer and longer periods of time until you're actually just completely blind at the end of it. So it's really it's a really difficult process. It's something that they, obviously learn and study for years in order to prepare themselves for.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the way that most of the Elder Scrolls are used. But they can be used in other ways. And one of those is actually sending someone or something through time,
Cool.
which happens obviously, to cause the events at the beginning part of the game. But you actually do get to experience a little bit of that in the middle of the game itself, which is
Okay.
really cool.
Which I haven't gotten to yet, but yeah.
So at the beginning of the game, as per usual for Elder Scrolls games, the player character is a prisoner. This time you wake up in a moving cart and you have like 3 individuals with you. One of them is Ulfric Stormcloak, which I mentioned in the episode Oblivion had started the Stormcloak Rebellion. And then there's Ralof, who is a fellow Stormcloak under Ulfric, and he kind of explains your whole situation, which is being caught in an ambush by the Imperials. And so you've been captured, you're taken to this town called Helgen, and you're going to be executed for treason. Because, obviously you were caught up with the Stormcloaks, so you must be one of them, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so there is no, I guess, due process in Skyrim.
Yeah, I guess not, but whatever works.
Yeah. So once the cart stops, then that's when you get your chance to select your character's race, gender, and looks along with their name. And so that's where you get to do that. So you don't have to be stuck as one thing throughout the game. This is also where you meet another character called Hadvar, and he's an Imperial, but he'll actually kind of like try to protest against the player character's execution, since he apparently has half a brain and can tell that you're not actually a part of the Stormcloaks, but he's kind of shot down, so you're all just supposed to die, I guess. However,
All right.
at the same time that all this is going on, Alduin finally emerges from the time stream at the throat of the world, which is the highest mountain in Skyrim. And Helgen is one of the closest towns to where he is. So obviously, you have a really mad dragon who was just sent through time. Like, I mean, obviously it's been a long time for the world, but for him, it was probably like, maybe a few seconds.
Right.
He's probably still really mad about everything. So he goes down and he destroys Helgen because, I mean, what else is a mad dragon supposed to do?
Exactly. What else is he gonna do? I'm just gonna destroy the first thing I see.
Yeah, exactly. I'm super mad, so I'm just gonna destroy this town. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yep.
So you get like this is where Bethesda's little tutorial comes in. They kind of give you this little hints about running through the town, and you get to the keep at the end, and that's where you'll make one of 2 relatively minor decisions, which is who to follow. You can choose to go with Ralof, the Stormcloak, or you can go with Hadvar, the Imperial. No matter who you choose, it doesn't really make a large amount of difference in the long run. The only thing it does is it determines what enemies you'll face in the keep, because if you choose to go with Ralof, the Stormcloak, you'll face Imperials and vice versa. And it also influences like what family in the nearby town of Riverwood you're directed to go to. And they'll also try to like recruit you for their side of the Civil War. But in the long run, it doesn't matter. Because, like, say if you go with Ralof and later you decide to join the Imperials, you can do that. You don't.
Gotcha. I think I did that by accident when, like, the second or third time I started a game. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I could follow that dude. And so I followed the other guy, and I'm like, oh, this is a little different than last time, but pretty much the same.
Yeah. My first time, I think I went with Hadvar just because I didn't even see Ralof run through there, so I didn't know the option. And then, like, my second character that I made, I'm like, wait, who is this guy standing there? I'm like, oh, okay, so this is, I could go with him too? Okay, that's cool.
All right, well, let's try it.
Yeah. So whichever side you do choose, you'll end up in a nearby town called Riverwood. And it's there that you're given the objective to report what happened to the Jarl of Whiterun, which is the nearby capital of the hold that you're in. And once you do, he'll, thank you, and then he'll lead you to this court wizard called Farengar. He will task you with retrieving the Dragon Stone, and he wants you to do this because he wants to try to figure out where these dragons are coming from, because before now, everybody thought that dragons were extinct. There hasn't been dragons seen in years. There's rumors of dragons over on the continent of Akavir. But I mean, like, nobody really goes over there, so nobody really knows for sure. There's also rumors of dragons potentially in the desert wastes of Hammerfell, but I mean, those again are kind of unsubstantiated. So, more or less everybody thought dragons are extinct. And all of a sudden, this dragon comes out of nowhere and destroys a town. So,
everybody's freaking out.
yeah, exactly. So this is going to be your first dungeon delve that you're sent on. And I swear I have done this quest for going through Bleak Falls Barrow so many times. I can do it in my sleep. I swear.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You should have seen me the first time I was doing this. Even still, I like turned on sneak and I'm like creeping around. I'm like, I don't want to get caught and I don't want to like fight guys. And then I was fighting the restless dragger, the one that's guarding the Dragonstone or whatever. And I'm like, he's gonna get me. And I don't know, I could never land my hits or anything. It was ridiculous. And my husband was just sitting there laughing at me. He's like, you have to actually hit it. I'm like, I am. What's going on? And then I finally killed him and it was all good. So it's okay.
I know. I remember the very first time I went through, I was like really freaked out and like, because there were like, Draugr and undead around there. And I'm like, oh, it's freaky. It's kind of creepy. Like, but now I just like run through. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. No big deal.
So once you're like in that final room, you get your very first word wall, which is the very first word of a shout, and you get to learn that. And then when you kill the Draugr Overlord, you can loot the Dragonstone from his body. And once you do that, then you can return it to Farengar, and then the real adventure will start to begin. Because once the Dragonstone is turned in, all of a sudden the Jarl's housecarl will run in, and she'll tell you that there's a dragon, and she'll basically like help recruit you to go out and kill said dragon because, quote, you have more experience with this. And it's like, I literally ran away from a town being destroyed. I'm not sure if that really qualifies as experience, but okay.
Yeah. Experience in that I've seen the dragon.
Yeah. So I know what it looks like, but I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody else knows what dragons look like too. So I'm not sure what experience you're leaning on, but okay. Let's do
yeah.
And this particular dragon that you're going to go fight is not Alduin. It's one that he has awakened because once he has come out of this time stream and presumably gotten over his tantrum, I guess he's realized that dragons are pretty much extinct. And so he's going around and awakening dragons. He's going to their different tombs, and he has the shout that he uses that actually resurrects them. So that's what he's doing, and that's what this particular dragon is he's a dragon that Alduin has resurrected. And once you kill him, or at least once he is dead, because, I mean, technically if you want, you could just let all the guards that go with you kill them. But,
I think I did that the first time. Like, oh, that was really easy.
But once you absorb his soul, at that point, the player character is revealed to be the legendary Last Dragonborn.
Oh, right. So that's what we mentioned earlier is that the character that you play in the game is actually a Dragonborn then.
Mm-hmm. So,
but I guess there could have been other Dragonborns before that. They just wouldn't have known because there were no dragons to use shouts at. Maybe?
I
don't know.
Possible, but
a side point. Anyways, so it was mentioned before, but what does it exactly mean to be a Dragonborn, except for that you know how to shout easily?
Well, according to the UESP, the Dragonborn is a mortal blessed with the blood and soul of a dragon by Akatosh. So while a dragon, like a normal dragon, can be killed by any other, presumably well-trained mortal, a Dragonborn is the only mortal who can permanently kill a dragon by absorbing their soul. It's because of this that, obviously dragons are not too fond of a Dragonborn because any other time they're killed, it's only their body. Their soul can be reborn.
Okay.
But when the Dragonborn absorbs their soul, their immortality is severed. They can't be reborn again.
Gotcha.
Absorbing the souls and permanently killing them is only one part of what actually happens in that process, because the reason the Dragonborn can easily learn shouts is because when they absorb those souls, they absorb the knowledge of the dragon, essentially cutting out all those years of study and practice that normal non-dragonborn people would have to go through in order to perform a shout. So it's kind of like
Oh,
you download it from Matrix. They just kind
that's awesome.
of
Yeah.
that
Instant download dragon knowledge. That's cool.
Yeah. And now the player character is a dragonborn, but they are specifically the last dragonborn.
Yeah.
And that is because they are known as the last dragonborn because it's actually the fulfillment of an Akaviri prophecy. They are the first dragonborn since the legendary Tiber Septim, which I guess that's part of their whole thing with the last dragonborn. So if there were other dragonborns, I don't know, but it's the first, I guess, recognized dragonborn since the legendary Tiber Septim.
So Tiber Septim was a person?
Yes,
Was it also a dragonborn?
Yes, and he was
Okay.
actually an emperor of the Imperial Army. He is, according to lore books, he is at least one of the people who ascended and became Talos. So
Oh,
it's a kind of contended, debated point as to whether it was him or if Talos is like three different people fused into one. Or
okay.
yeah, it's really complicated.
Interesting. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's a very big deal, and so the last dragonborn is supposed to be the first dragonborn since the legendary Tiber Septim. They're revealed with the return of Alduin, and they are destined to defeat the World Eater. So those are
Okay.
kind of the requirements for the prophecy, and so that's why the player character is known as the last dragonborn. So I guess
And so,
supposed to be any other dragonborn after this one.
yeah. And then is the World Eater another dragon, or is that another name for Alduin?
That's just another name for Alduin because
Okay.
that was basically his job, was to eat the world. And
Gotcha.
devour it.
Well, no wonder first thing he did, he took out a town.
Yeah,
No big deal.
yeah. But if you're a world eater, I mean, yeah. Let's just go ahead and do that.
Right.
It's a little snack, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So once you unlock your shouting ability, once you are revealed, then the last dragonborn is summoned by the Greybeards to High Hrothgar. Now the Greybeards are an order of monks who study the way of the voice. So they're the people who are non-dragonborn who are actually studying shouts and how to shout and everything like that. And they have a temple near the top of the throne of the world called High Hrothgar. And they kind of just live up there. They're kind of isolated and cut off from a lot of people. Once you actually go to where you start to go up to High Hrothgar, there's actually a guy there who delivers food up to them. And you get a little optional quest to kind of deliver the food for him. So yeah, they're kind of just this isolated group that just kind of meditates and studies what's called Thum, which is how you shout and everything like that. So once you go up there and you meet them, they task the Dragonborn with retrieving the hull of Jurgen Windcaller, who is like the founder of their order, somebody very important to them. So it's, basically a little fetch quest.
Yeah.
Once you get there, though, because you're directed to go to this certain crypt, and once you get there, you find out that somebody has already been there, and they have stolen the horn, and they have just left this little note for you to come and find them. And I remember the first time that happened to me, I was really mad because I was like, okay, I've gone through this whole crypt, and like once you get to this end part, like these like columns start rising, and like your controller is shaking. I'm like, oh, like what enemy am I going to face here? And nope, you don't face any enemy. It's just a note, and I just really mad about that.
Like all this work, and you bring me to a piece of paper.
Yes,
awesome.
So anyway, once you go meet them, they'll give the horn back, and they actually reveal themselves to be one of the last blades.
Oh, yeah. So I haven't gotten to this part yet. I think I'm still like on the way to High Hrothgar in any of my games. So weren't there blades in Oblivion? I think I remember something about that from our last episode too.
Yes. Now in Oblivion, they were tasked with protecting the Emperor. And so they were, in the beginning part of the game, they were the ones that were going along with the Emperor when you were trying to escape from the sewers. And you also got to be recruited into the Blades if you wished, and go to this blade temple to protect Martin and all that stuff. So they were there in Oblivion. They were initially tasked with basically the Emperor's security. But after Uriel Septim died, and after the line of Dragonborn emperors was broken with the death of Martin, they kind of just withdrew, and they just kind of waited for another Dragonborn to serve, and they kind of left the protection of the Emperor to the Penitus Oculatus. Now, by the time Skyrim takes place, which is 200 years after Oblivion, they've been hunted down and almost completely exterminated by the Aldmeri Dominion. There's pretty much just two blades that are known to survive. There's Delphine, who is the one that stole the horn, and she asked the Dragonborn for help. And there's Esbern, who is a lore master who you will eventually meet.
Okay.
So after meeting with Delphine, a sharp-eyed player will recognize that it was her who planted the idea of having the Dragonstone retrieved in order to try to predict where and when the dragons will be resurrected. Because when you go in to hand over the Dragonstone to Farengar, you'll see a woman standing at the desk wearing leather armor and a hood, and that's Delphine. So it took me a little bit to connect that, but once I did, I'm like, you sneaky. You've been doing this for a while. Anyway, she uses the information that you get from the Dragonstone, and she takes you to this dragon grave outside of the small village of Kynesgrove. And she wants you to kill this dragon and basically prove that you're Dragonborn or whatever, because I guess she doesn't trust the Greybeard's assessment that you're Dragonborn.
Okay.
But, you actually get to witness Alduin resurrect another dragon at this point. And once you kill the dragon and you absorb the soul and everything, she'll finally recognize you as Dragonborn, and she'll bring you in on her plan to try to figure out how to stop the dragons from coming back. So she'll need a little bit of time to put together an espionage plan, and that's usually when I just return the horn to the Greybeards, who, once you return the horn, they'll officially pronounce you as Dragonborn, and they'll give you their little blessing.
Yeah.
Of course, since Delphine considers the Aldmeri Dominion a mortal enemy, they're the very first one she suspects it being involved, because, obviously it must be them.
Of course. They're just super suspicious all the time.
So. Oh, yes. I mean, I don't like them either, but it's really? You think they're wanting dragons to come back? That doesn't make any sense, but whatever. Delphine is not the smartest cookie in the bunch, so, she'll still want you to try and find proof either way. So she'll arrange this little spying mission for you at their embassy. And I mean, of course, since they aren't involved, you're not going to find any evidence, but you will find there are 3 dossiers that you can take. There is one on Ulfric Stormcloak. They kind of imply that he's one of their agents, albeit an uncooperative one. Apparently they had captured him and tortured him, and they tried to kind of use him, but he became uncooperative. So that's a little bit of interesting information for the Civil War quest line, if anyone is doing that. There is one on Delphine, as they've been trying to track her, and then there's one on Esbern. And Delphine will ask you to go find Esbern and bring him to her. And he's located in this little Ratway Warrens of Riften, and it's kind of a confusing little place. I always hate doing this mission because it's always so confusing where you have to go. But you go there and you save him from some Thalmor agents sent by the Aldmeri Dominion, and he'll tell the Dragonborn and Delphine about this special temple that he believes will hold the answer to defeating Alduin and stopping all this from happening. So once you get them reunited, then you actually go off and you open this old temple, and you get a look at this famous carved stone called Alduin's Wall. And that recounts the time of the dragon cult and Alduin's initial defeat. And it's at that time that you realize that Alduin was stopped by use of a shout. So the best bit, previous to this, there hasn't really been any information about, how Alduin came back or anything like that. So, really knowing now that shouts are involved, the best bet is to go to the Greybeards and ask about it, since they're the only ones that seem to have knowledge of shouts at this point. And initially, no matter what you tell them, they'll refuse to help you. But they'll get this kind of correction from their leader, which is kind of like, it feels like the earth is kind of trembling around you. It's kind of really cool. But, once that happens, they relent and they give you the shout to clear the skies so that you can meet their leader at the very top of the throne of the world. And previously it was like impossible to get any higher without that shout because of just the severe weather at the very top of the throne of the world.
Oh, yeah.
But once you actually make it up there, you discover that their leader, Parthenax, is a dragon.
Oh, so the leader, the leader of the Greybeards is a dragon, but it seems like they're like, the Greybeards are trying to get rid of the dragons, so I'm kind of confused.
Oh no, they don't want to get rid of the dragons. The Greybeards just study the voice.
They study the voice. Okay, so that makes more sense that their leader's a dragon then. Okay, so he's Parthenax. Parthenax. Okay.
I just call him Parthy because it's easier.
That's way easier. Yeah, Parthy. Okay, so Parthy.
He is Alduin's younger brother, and he actually used to be his lieutenant before he betrayed him and helped mortals learn how to shout. And little fun fact, he is voiced by the same voice actor who does Mario.
That's great.
Yeah. He doesn't
awesome.
sound anything like him, but he's the same voice actor. So I always really get a kick out of that little factoid. But since Alduin's initial defeat, he's just been kind of living up at the throne of the world, kind of teaching Greybeards and leading them and, helping them with their studies and everything like that. And he's the one that's able to advise the Dragonborn on what they need to do next.
Okay, so does he know which shout was used against Alduin?
He knows it, but he knows of it, but he can't teach it to the Dragonborn. As Parthenax explains, to be able to use a shout, one needs to be able to fully understand the meaning behind it. And since Dragon Rend basically renders a dragon temporarily mortal, he's unable to understand that and thus unable to learn it and pass it on himself. The humans that he instructed actually came up with this themselves. It's a completely human invented shout. So it's really cool. But he does know how the shout can be learned. So since Alduin was initially thrown through time right there at the throne of the world, it's created like this little weak spot. And you can kind of see it in game. There's this little spot where everything's kind of wavy. And if the Dragonborn tracks down an Elder Scroll and he uses it at that spot, then they can cast themselves back in time in order to observe what happened before that was created. And that way they can obtain the knowledge they need in order to learn the shout.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So once the Dragonborn locates and extracts the Elder Scroll from its location in Blackreach, they're able to use it at the throne of the world, observe those events that caused Alduin to be cast forward in time, and by doing that, they learn the shout Dragon Rend. At the end of that whole vision, however, Alduin reappears, and the Dragonborn has to use the shout on him in order to fight him. But even though you fight him, and even though you get his health down to like nothing, it's seemingly just not enough because he shakes it off and is like, "Oh, you think you can defeat me here?" Ha ha ha! And basically just flies away. And it's like, really? Really? I did all that work.
That's great. Thanks for, yeah.
So without knowing where he's gone, now you have to figure out a way to find out where he's disappearing to. So there are like 3 people you could talk to after he flies away. You could talk to the leader of the Greybeards. You could talk to Esbern. I always talk to Parthenax because he's literally right there. I mean, why am I going to go anywhere else when he's right there? And they'll tell you that the home of the Jarl of Whiterun, which is known as Dragon's Reach, used to be a trap used to ensnare dragons. Now, what happens next kind of depends a little bit on if the player has done any of the Civil War questline. Because if you have completed the Civil War questline up to a certain point, which is basically like right near the end, or if they've completed it, then you can just proceed immediately. There is no wait. But if you haven't done the Civil War questline, or if it hasn't gotten to a specific point near the end, then you'll have to hold this negotiations to, get a truce going, because otherwise the Jarl of Whiterun will say, "Oh, well, it's too dangerous with the Civil War going on. I can't I can't have a dragon here at the same time this is going on. So you have to negotiate the truce between
I
the North
see.
and the Imperials. It's no big
Yeah.
deal, really. And once those negotiations are over, you can go ahead and track a dragon in Dragon's Reach. Esbern will have the name of a dragon for you, Odeving, and to summon him, you basically just shout their name. And so while you're on the little Dragon's Reach porch there, you use the shout, and that summons him, and then you can use Dragon Wren to ground him and lure him into the trap. And then you can interrogate him and ask him where Alduin has been going.
Yeah.
It's not too intense of an interrogation. He doesn't mind telling you that Alduin has, just gone to this temple on Skulldafn, which can only be reached by flight, of course.
Yeah, of course.
He offers to take the Dragonborn there in exchange for letting him go. And I know that sounds kind of iffy, and I was a little iffy on it, like the first playing through, but there's no way to proceed with the main quest line without freeing him. So you have to free him.
Okay.
But once he's free, he'll allow the Dragonborn to mount him, and then he'll fly them to the temple. And unfortunately, we don't get to watch the flight, which I think is maybe partly why they added the ability to fly with dragons to one of the DLCs, because come on, that's such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, that would be super cool. I don't know why you wouldn't get to watch that. I would want to.
Me too. I was very disappointed, but
yeah.
Anyway, once he lands at the temple and you get down, there will, of course, be hordes of Draugr to face, and even 2 lesser dragons before you even get in the temple proper.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And if you're above level 30 or so, all of those Draugr are Draugr Death Lords, which are like some of the toughest.
No.
So, yeah, either you want to be really stocked up on your health potions, or just go there at a lower level and they won't be Death Lords.
Gotcha. Good
but once you fight through the temple, you'll go to this little outside part, like at the top, and you still have to face and fight a dragon priest. And after you defeat them, you can use their staff to get to where Alduin really is, and that's Sovngarde.
Okay, and what's that?
Sovngarde is the Nord afterlife. It's a plane of Aetherius where honorable Nords go when they die, and they feast in this Hall of Valor, which is kind of a similar concept to Valhalla.
Sounds like it, yep.
Yeah. So Alduin has kind of retreated there because he's strongest there, and because he can devour souls and become stronger. So at this point that you go there, he's kind of encased all along the outside of the Hall of Valor in this dense mist. And it kind of like disorients all the souls that are wandering there, and he can devour them once they're confused and just kind of wandering around.
Okay.
You can use your Clear Skies shout, and that will temporarily clear the mist, but it'll just come back fairly quickly. So it's best to just go ahead and run through and go to the bridge so you can get to the hall.
Gotcha.
Once you make it to the Hall of Valor and you pass the test given by Soon, who guards the bridge, you can roam the hall pretty much as you want. There's no like real time limit or time crunch or anything. And if you're a lore hound like I am, you can even spot a few important historical figures that are in that hall. But there are 3 in particular that you need to seek out, and those are the 3 who originally went up against Alduin.
Okay, well that makes sense, and they would have been Nords as well, so they would all be there.
Yeah. So, obviously they have dealt with Alduin before, and they can help you. So once you kind of recruit them, you run outside, and you all use your combined shouts to clear the mist and call down Alduin, which is when you combine him with Dragon Wren and kill him, thus completing your task as the last Dragonborn. However, yay! However, it's important to note that Alduin doesn't die like other dragons. When other dragons are slain, their body kind of burns away and they leave a skeleton, and that happens like as the Dragonborn absorbs their soul. However, Alduin's entire body, skeleton and all, just dissolves and disappears, leaving nothing to loot, and the Dragonborn doesn't actually absorb his soul. So this kind of leaves questions as to if Alduin is really gone or not, or if he can truly be defeated, if perhaps his dragon form is just this outward manifestation of this concept of death and rebirth, but
Yeah.
that's kind of a debate best left to the experts on TES lore. So I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm sure they have lots of threads regarding that if you want to check that out.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So some of the impacts, you kind of notice that impact-wise, it's not, in the end, there's not really as much as there are for Oblivion. I know we talked a good bit about the after effects of the events of Oblivion, but for Skyrim, there's not really that much. I mean, obviously the world doesn't end, which is good.
Right.
But, you know, compared to Oblivion or even Morrowind, which we're going to have to cover one of these days, there isn't that much that seems like it would kind of carry over from the end of Skyrim into the next Elder Scrolls. And I mean, obviously that could change when Elder Scrolls 6 is released and we kind of get a little bit of, you know, perspective, but you know, just looking at it the way it is, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot that would. Because I mean, you know, obviously the world is still there, which is, you know,
Right.
obviously the reason why we can have Elder Scrolls 6. But, you know, the winner of the Civil War is kind of up to whoever the Dragonborn chooses, if they even choose to complete it, since it's not even necessary to advance the main quest line. So whoever wins it, it has to be insignificant enough in the grand scheme of things to, you know, kind of be canon in Elder Scrolls 6. And I think
right, because every player would have come up with their own scenario.
Exactly. So
it needs to,
So I think we touched on it a little bit in the game Oblivion, where, you know, the Aldmeri Dominion likely was going to take advantage of whoever won and, you know, beat whoever won. So, you know, basically it was insignificant whoever did win. So, I mean, that kind of sucks, but
right.
But, you know, even the whole world ending scenario doesn't seem to have as much of an impact as Oblivion's did, because in Oblivion, at the end of the main quest line, the Empire was basically left in shambles. There's no heir. There's, you know, basically like a shell of a governing body for the Empire. And as we know, that kind of dissolves into, you know, chaos and different warlords trying to seize control of the Empire until Titus Meade eventually comes along and secures that. So, you know, those events are still felt 200 years later in the game of Skyrim. So, but, you know, in this case, it's like, you know, once you kill Alduin and once you come back, it's like, oh, well, business is just, continuing as usual. You know, there's, you know, I guess not a lot we can really say or speculate on until Elder Scrolls 6 is released. But, you know, I think I'm going to call it that it's not going to be a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, so we'll see. For some reason, I seem to remember either they told everyone the setting, like where Elder Scrolls 6 is going to take place, or maybe I'm just imagining something. Do we know that?
They haven't confirmed yet. There has been a lot of speculation, pretty educated speculation, I think, as to where exactly it's going to take place.
Okay.
And I know that it was leaked that Bethesda and ZeniMax had filed patents or copyrights or whatever those specific things are. I don't really know all of those kind of details. What's a copyright? I don't know. But I know that they filed these things for the name Redfall, which is not a country. It's not a city or anything like that. But it's something similar that happened when Skyrim, before Skyrim was announced. So potentially, if that is linked to Elder Scrolls, it could be linked to some significant event that's going to take place in this game. Kind of like how Oblivion's title references the Oblivion Crisis and not Cyrodiil, the province that it takes place in.
Yeah, exactly.
Skyrim.
Right.
So that will be interesting to see once, you know, down the road, once we get a little bit more concrete information on that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, yeah. But definitely exciting because we know Elder Scrolls 6 is happening.
Finally got information this year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call it, it's probably going to come out around 2021, which is like the 10th anniversary of Skyrim, which is one of like their biggest games. They've, you know, been releasing and re-releasing this on different platforms. So, you know, and Bethesda is big on anniversaries. So I'm going to call it 2021.
Okay.
we'll see how my prediction holds up.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch on that one. Yeah. So now that we've covered all of the events and the lore in Skyrim, it's time for nerd news.
Yay! So for our nerd news today, we have a few different items that we wanted to bring up. One is that Fallout 76 has been holding beta sessions for the past month or so, and the game will officially drop on the 14th. There have been a few hiccups with the beta, but hopefully all of that will get smoothed over for the final release. And overall, from what I've seen from the variety of people that I've watched play or read about playing, they seem to be pretty happy overall with the game. So
okay. My husband read Bethesda's post about, hey, we're doing beta testing, and basically they were really politely saying, thanks for helping us get out all these bugs.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there was one major one that caused people to lose everything and they had to re-download the game.
Oh no.
So, yeah, so I mean, obviously it's good that this is a beta and not the actual release, because that
right.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you've seen yet, but they finally dropped the trailer for Netflix's The Witcher series starring Henry Cavill as Geralt, and the first time I saw that, I thought this exact thought, and I'm so glad that somebody else has been talking about it, because everybody has been comparing him to Christopher Lambert's Raiden from the 1995 live-action Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh boy.
Have you seen that yet?
I have not, actually. No, I didn't even know that Henry Cavill was in it. I've heard of The Witcher as a game, but I didn't know that they were doing a show or that he was in it or anything. So,
yeah, so
interesting.
Actually, you might find it interesting because it was originally a book series. The
Ah.
majority of it was actually released in the 90s. I think they had a recent one released in 2008 or something. But yeah, it was a book series, and then they made it a video game series, and now it's going to be a Netflix series. And hopefully it will be better than the Mortal Kombat movie.
Let's hope. Yeah. So also, long-awaited sequel has come out, Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption, my husband has played it before, and one of his best friends absolutely loves it. Also seems to be a hit as well. The sequel right now is sitting at about 97 out of 100 for Metacritic. Tons of people are streaming it right now on Twitch and YouTube, wherever people stream their games. Tons of people are watching people stream it, which is crazy and awesome. And I've even seen a bajillion memes about it already too, which is hilarious.
One of my favorites was they took the box art and they kind of photoshopped it. So from the makers of, what was it? It was from the makers of Wheelie Steely Automobile Come Shooty Cavalry.
Oh.
They just made a play on the names.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. And then along with Red Dead Redemption 2 coming out, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 came out a few weeks ago, and tons of people have been streaming that too. So those two games have been super popular lately for streamers. Speaking of new games, Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu release in a couple of weeks on November 16th. And also an entirely new set of Pokemon cards have come out to go along with those games. They are exclusively Nintendo Switch games. And you can't save multiple copies of the game. So if you and a friend want to play it, you have to have your own copy of the game. You can't just save it on your friend's. Sorry. I was kind of hoping. My husband pre-ordered Let's Go Eevee. He's like, this is going to be so fun. And he's like, oh, if you want to play it, you're going to have to get your own copy. I'm like, oh, I guess we will. But the games are also integrated with Pokemon Go, which is cool. So I'm not exactly sure how that'll work out, but it'll be really cool to see how they communicate from the mobile app into the Switch game. And then you can also use the Pokeball Plus to catch Pokemon, and then you can take the Pokeball Plus with you, and whatever Pokemon you have trapped inside that Pokeball, you can click the button and it makes a little sound. So that's adorable. It's really awesome.
Yeah. And one last note here for nerd news. Fans of Doctor Who maybe a little disappointed to learn that for the first time in 13 years, there will be no Christmas special episode this year.
Sad face.
No, according to the show's writers, they've simply run out of Yuletide storylines. And, if that's the case, then okay, I'd rather have no Christmas special than a Christmas special that is just completely forced,
That's fair.
Yeah, because I mean, once you get to that point, it's like you can tell,
Right, exactly. Well, that's good that they're actually admitting we're done with the Christmas thing. We can't come up with anything good enough. That's fine. I'm okay with that. And there will be a New Year's episode?
Yes, there will be a special New Year's episode. So I'm thinking maybe this could mark a new tradition going forward. Instead of there being a Christmas episode special, there's a New Year's episode special.
I'd be okay with that. New Year's episode would be cool too. I like traditions. They're fun. So, I mean, I'm kind of sad that there won't be a Christmas special, but I also have old Christmas specials to catch up on, and they do have a special New Year's episode, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So, I mean,
right.
They're not totally banning it. They're just kind of changing the concept a little bit, I think.
Exactly. It's around the same time frame anyway, so it's all good, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks for getting nerdy with us today. We'd also love it if you check out our new show merch. We have an entirely new store platform for our show merch, which you can find in the link for the show's description wherever you're listening to this, or you can also find the link on our Instagram bio. I'll also tell you the link. It is www.teepublic.com/user/pubhousemedia, and there you will find all of the Public House Media shows with all of their merch, and you'll also be able to find the Beauties of Headcanons merch. So if you want to rep the show, go ahead and check out our new show merch. I'm super excited. Oh my goodness, I really want to get a pillow. I really do. And with that, I'm Emily.
And I'm Elisabeth, and thanks for getting nerdy with us on Beauties and Headcanons.